I'll call this meeting to order.
All righty, so Councilmember Middleton. Present. Councilmember, you're fine, Councilmember Matavetsky.
Present.
And Councilmember Rathmel.
Present.
Perfect, that's the committee right there, and Dr. Gehring has generously agreed to join us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll start with just kind of like a discussion regarding fluoride. Can you just give a little background on it? So first, like I've had people call, like some of my constituents call and say that fluoride is bad for you and it like messes with your brain. Can you kind of give like an introduction? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. You give like an introduction, like, you know, what it does, just about it in general, and then we'll go on, but just an introduction. Thank you.
So fluoride is on the table of elements. It's a naturally occurring substance. There is no debate whatsoever if fluoride is bad for you or not. It's really, is fluoride in water bad for you? So dentists apply fluoride directly to their teeth if you go to the dentist. And fluoride's found naturally in soil and other places in varying levels, depending on where you live. So
I put this on speaker.
Oh, I think it sounds like we had Professor Shepherd.
yeah,
As
hi,
well.
Julian.
Julian, is that your hand? No, it's not. Okay, I'm just gonna mute you for now, and if you would like to be unmuted, then just raise your hand. Great.
So, in the 1940s, with the deluge of dental cavities, mainly in children, fluoride began to be added into water systems in the United States. So as of today, like 3 out of 4 Americans have fluoridated water. The amount of cavities and complications from cavities, which are far ranging and more than people think. So children with cavities, besides being on antibiotics, running risk for systemic infections, having the stigma of bad teeth, which is a stigma of poverty for sure. And beyond that, cardiovascular health, there's intimately lies within tooth health. They're kind of related together. We saw a marked decrease in cavities, antibiotic use, and other things during the period between 1945 and 1973, 74. So it was hailed as one of the top health breakthrough public health measures of all time because it was equitable. Everybody got it, regardless of who you were, if you drank the water that was fluoride in it. It has been monitored in the United States at low levels, and that's where it's kept. It's been that way for a long, long time. In order to get toxic from fluoride in water that's treated properly, you'd have to drink 286 liters a day. You will die. Any adult would die, any child would die. So it's sort of a little bit puffed up currently. That's really an issue. I'll explain that more later. In the 70s, something happened. Fluoride was put in toothpaste. And so we saw the margin of those with fluoridated water and non-fluoridated water close to very close. Now, the only hitch there is, and this is where Binghamton comes in, is you actually have to brush your teeth. Because fluoride is in toothpaste in a convenience store that's overpriced. I mean, that is not the same, that doesn't do anybody any good. It has to be on your child. I'm talking about children here who don't have a choice, mainly. To brush their teeth twice a day, and more than that, see a dentist twice a year. That's incredibly hard in Binghamton with Medicaid. Like a lot of dentists don't accept it. We've actually, from the health department, had to send kids as far as Corning for dental care. And so that's really the situation with fluoride. So if you look at the data, and there's been a lot, of course, with the government change and the RFK, this and that. There's this fluoride thing has come to the forefront. There's even a group in Binghamton called Fluoride Action Network, who makes it their job in the world, their hill to die on, to take fluoride out of water. But that's really, for Binghamton, is not a good choice. I don't know if any of you are from downstate. Scarsdale. Let's take Scarsdale, New York. It's a wealthy town, lots of dentists, people with health insurance who care about their teeth. They go all the time. Or another place like Hawaii, who has socialized medicine and is paradise. There's no dearth of dentists in the Hawaiian Islands, believe me. Even that being said, they don't have fluoride in their water. Their teeth are aren't awesome either. So I have some experience here. I was from Hawaii. I also practiced, my first job was in Israel and I was educated there, who took fluoride out of their water and brought it back because they marked them
And
out.
why did they bring it back?
They brought it back because of infections, cavities, and dental care. So in a socialized system, you're paying for fluoride in your water, or you're not, and then you're paying collectively for dental care for kids and adults. For every dollar spent on fluoride, you save $20 in dental care. So Israel brought it back. The city of Calgary in Canada took fluoride out of their water because of the same pressure that fluoride was hurting their kids. And they brought it back again 10 years later after the data showed that there was more cavities, more infections, more antibiotic use. Juneau, Alaska, same story. So, I mean, that's really the issue. If somebody here wants to take fluoride out of the water, it would be markedly irresponsible for the children who have no choice, who don't go to the 5 and dime to buy toothpaste and brush their teeth. But besides that, nobody here is going to do a study to see how it helps or not, guaranteed.
Yeah.
No one's going to follow that.
Yeah.
We're not going to follow it at the health department. We don't have the human power to do such a thing. I don't.
Or the money, huh?
Oh, the money, it takes the money. Yeah, I mean, we all have that. We all have that problem.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid that there's a little bit of hyped up scientific analysis, but science doesn't tell you how to apply science. Art tells you how to apply science. And this is one of those things you need to use the information and paint on the canvas we actually live in. Not a fantasy world. This is not the Garden of Eden. The people who want to take fluoride out of the water is laudable, actually, but there's so many steps. Like, how about more dentists? How about a push to brush teeth? How about better housing? How about better food? How about better schools? How about there's so many other things.
Like social issues.
First, yeah, this is like taking away something that's so equitable and cheap compared to the alternative for something else. So just to stir the pot a little bit, I'm a skeptic, but I'm not a cynic. I'm paid and educated to be a skeptic of everything we do, every vaccine, everything. Those who don't want fluoride, honestly, they're cynics and they're falling prey, I believe, to this sort of bias of what they want to hear. It's like confirmation bias is what it's called. There was recently a study, it was a meta-analysis, not a study, of 74 studies about fluoride in children. You may have heard about this, came out maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago at the New York Times, I think. And it showed that margin was very close. And it also, a meta-analysis is like a group of studies put together to try to make some story out of it. 74 studies done all over the world. And it looked like, hey, there might be a problem with fluoride, with things like IQ and other things like that. But if you dig into it, 55 of those studies, maybe 57, would have never passed muster in the United States of America. Either one, they didn't have an adequate control group, or they tried to measure IQ on 3 and 4-year-olds. You can't do that. You have to be able to read, actually, to do an IQ test. And those studies I just mentioned had parts per million of fluoride in their water source that was far beyond what we allow. So in Binghamton, your water is measured at 0.7 parts per million every day. 365 days, all automated. So it can't, like, if it goes up, the alarm goes off and it gets fixed. It's not 1.4 or 2.3 or whatever some of these studies showed. Too much fluoride is a bad thing. Too much magnesium gives you diarrhea. Too much oxygen can kill you. I mean, it's just because it's too much, it's not the same. So in Europe, they do it differently. They don't have fluoride in their water in Europe because you know what they have? Socialized medicine. Everyone has dental care. It's free. You pay for it with your taxes, and they have dentists. Like, they're a little more organized than our country, honestly, as the EU goes. But they also have fluoridated salt. We don't have fluoridated salt. So they get their fluoride. They get it at the dentist. They get it in toothpaste. They probably get educated. They probably brush their teeth in their schools, for all I know. But it's not what we do in Binghamton currently. And I don't think that ball is going to change. I don't think we're going to roll that forward right away. So my opinion, like full on, is that it's laudable, but it's not in the right order and it's not the right place. There's other social issues that could be mended. Like, all the energy, whoever the folks are putting towards this should maybe do a blue zone project. or something where you actually put people on policy boards to understand green spaces, good housing, where to put cheaper food that's good, not a convenience store that's expensive. And all the stuff you guys know, I mean, you're all Binghamton City Council members, right? I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So anyway, that's my barfing.
Thank you.
Don't put that word in.
Oh
Watching unquote.
my gosh, thank you so much. Okay, so that was an amazing presentation. So what do you say, like, to like, how did that start? Like the bad, like there's been,
So there were, honestly, what it is, it's when science hits heartstrings inside of you, I think, but it's not fully explained, or you're not looking at the big picture. Like fluoride doesn't, I don't think about fluoride in my life, I don't, but it's not the hill I want to die on, is what I'm saying, but it's just not good to take it away from people who don't have it. So I think people aren't thinking, like, this is the cheapest, most equitable public health measure that we may have ever seen. And it does reduce cavities, stigma, cardiovascular disease, antibiotic use, hospitalizations in the most vulnerable group of people that I could think of, kids under 6. So so when people, they don't look at it that way. They say, well, it's hurting people, but how much? There's a little more nuance to, like, yes, fluoride toxicity does hurt bones and probably causes other problems, but we're not talking about fluoride toxicity. We're talking about very measured levels, low levels. Like, we do this all the time, low levels of processed foods, low levels of alcohol or marijuana or whatever. Like, it is accepted, low levels of fluoride is gonna happen, and you may not be able to avoid it anyway, because it's in soil, you just don't, like, every area is different. So Johnson City doesn't have fluoride in their water. I don't think they're like a D1 contender for the best teeth in New York.
no, but their water's gross.
Yes.
Well, I don't think, I was gonna say, I don't think anyone drinks their water.
That's
anyway,
yes,
so-
absolutely disgusting.
But that's the other thing. On the other side, if you are a person of means who can buy bottled water, which probably isn't that good anyway, if you like microplastics, which is now a thing, then you can avoid that. But for these families, we know them, they're not doing that. That's not what they're gonna do. It's reality. I mean, it's using the information and painting it on the canvas in front of us, which in this case is the city of Binghamton. It's not Scarsdale, it's not White Plains, it's not, Hollywood or anything like that. It's just not. So that's. How did it get this way? People are afraid. It's
So,
okay, like, we don't mind the questions are great, why not? It's science, actually, we love to fail, the first blood transfusion was between a cow and a man, and they were next to each other. Just because that failed doesn't mean we stopped. He actually survived and then had to have it again, and then he died because of an anaphylactic reaction, but we don't do that anymore. So we don't mind moving forward at all, and we do move forward by these pinching questions. But some of these are just, it's like not the right paint for this town right now.
So you brought up examples of people who maybe otherwise aren't getting any fluoride. What about people, so like my routine, I use Sensodyne, I have sensitive teeth. So I use highly fluoridated toothpaste
Right.
2 to 3 times a day, plus Act fluoride mouth rinse.
Right.
Once, sometimes I buy the twice a day variety, sometimes I buy the once a day variety, whatever is available. So I'm dosing multiple times. I go to the dentist twice a year.
Right.
Are there studies tracking people that maybe are having more exposure, and whether or not that's
So,
getting
but the key is you're not swallowing your Sensodyne,
right?
you're not swallowing your mouthwash, and the fluoride goes on your teeth, and then they basically, we've been to the dentist, you
Yeah.
spit and you spit and you spit.
Yeah.
So it's not really being taken. There's
Some of it is
absorption.
because
There's some
my understanding
mouth
is now we don't rinse. You're not supposed to rinse after you brush, which was new then.
Just to leave it on your teeth now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we're
Mostly.
absorbing more.
right,
Yeah.
so there is absorption into the teeth, there's also absorption a little bit into the bloodstream, those are minuscule amounts. If
Okay.
you're drinking Binghamton water, it wouldn't really matter. Also, when you're talking IQ points, you're talking like 1.6. I don't know, guys, I don't know what that means, 1.6 more smarter, stupider. I don't know how you want to look at it, I don't know what that means. As far as being a big deal. All the cancer risks have not been seen in human beings, not even close. Of course, these are toxic doses in rats or mice or something, not in humans. So there is no link between osteosarcomas and thyroid cancers. It just hasn't been seen. Like there's strong evidence for that. The other thing is when you give kids fluoride, if you've had children, I can tell you they swallow toothpaste. My
Yeah.
kids like swallow
I used
toothpaste,
to eat it.
they brush their teeth with their finger, they don't flush, they do everything. So.
I did, I used to eat it. We didn't have a lot of candy in my house.
So there's so much educational things that we could be focused on if we're really like, if the group of conservation wants to move like that, there is a blue zone project, you ever know what
I
blue zone is? In that thing.
To disclaim, the vote of the environmental commission was nearly 50-50. It broke by one vote in one direction, so I don't wanna overgeneralize the committee member,
Okay.
commission.
Is somebody raising their hand?
I don't have
Oh,
anything.
I think,
Oh, okay.
That's the concern.
oh, okay.
I don't think anyone raised their hand. I think I just wanted to represent the pairing of the actual data.
Well, what'd you do?
Extremely compelling and helpful, so thank you for that. And I also appreciate the perspective of that data overlaid on social determinants of health
Mhm.
and the broader lens to consider all of this from. So, I mean, this has been extremely, so I wasn't involved in the vote last year, sworn in on city council in January, ex officio member on the commission as of January, but extremely compelling. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, Albany just went through this, by the way, and they decided to keep their fluoride in their water. Again, the same, very similar situation. Honestly, we're worse than Albany by the percentages and stats on many things. But they decided, you know, to keep fluoride in their water. So it's not like actually Scarsdale has fluoride in their water too, by the way, just in case. You know, I just use that as an example of a wealthy area. And so, I mean, that's kind of where we stand in reality, 2025, February, not in the fantasy zone.
Thank you.
Um,
It is, I was gonna say, it is kind of like just to piggyback on Rebecca, it's more of a social issue than.
So I know you mentioned that it's a cheap delivery mechanism, but it does cost money. And it sounds like the main target group is that up to 6-year-old. I mean, you don't really start fluoridated toothpaste until like 2 years old, maybe. Well, kind of in that ballpark. I mean, if you're conscientiously following what your pediatrician tells you to do and your dentist tells you to do. So you're mostly that 2 to 6 range. I just was, as opposed to the whole population, if that money were redirected towards providing toothpaste through schools or something like that, if that would be more effective or similarly effective or worse, or
I mean, I
kind
think,
of thoughts.
but I think those are
we
cool ideas. I mean, I really do. I think
Education.
that's a European sort of
Yeah.
approach a little bit is. Europeans, if there's any hazard to anything, they'll take it out and then they'll replace it in a different way. It's kind of the way they do things in the EU. But for this, those are the kind of ideas I'd be thinking about first before you take fluoride out of water. There is benefit for everybody across the board. I mean, everyone has an enamel on their teeth. You want it to be strong. The cardiovascular disease would be like our age. I can't tell you how many people, this is anecdotal totally, I see every year someone who went to the dentist 2 weeks later has an abscess or something in their chest or their head or some other place from like poor dentition gone haywire, or even good dentition like there by the dentist. The other thing, I don't know if the Committee on Conservation talked to any dentists. I did. I talked to 3 of them. They had their minds were blown, especially Dr. Bruns, who's the busiest pediatric dentist right next to the health department. He's like, what? His whole office was in an uproar when I came in and told them it was a consideration. They're like, they didn't ever ask us. They're the ones who see it. So they're the boots on the ground group. Bruns, Grossman, you can see his adults. He's an Owego, but I mean, these are the people like the ADA recommends it. They're not conspiracy theorists. No one's making money on it. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends it, as does the American Academy of Family Physicians recommends it. So it's one of those things like that's sort of the expert opinion, but I can tell you, we're all skeptics. Like, this is how we progress. We just don't take, we always want to be better. It's just, this isn't the first step in being better. This is one of the last steps.
I think what's really helpful about that cynic versus skeptic distinction is that data can be represented any which way, and you can attach a narrative to any data. And so, particularly that meta-analysis that you highlighted earlier, I mean, it's just really crucial to not only be understanding the data, but the context in which it was collected and analyzed, the application, and again, all of the social factors. I appreciate the question of, I mean, when you say dentists in this context, to me, it's boots on the ground. Like who is most directly impacted? We've represented marginalized, lower socioeconomic status households, and then boots on the ground, who's providing the service currently, that's dentists. Like these are all of the folks that should have been involved in the conversation from the beginning. And I think it's fair to point out that they weren't.
I guess I have a question about what data or what kind of information would hypothetically make you change your mind? Like what,
Sure,
like,
sure.
you know, because that's kind of when you read the online stuff, they say, well, they're so entrenched, they never could, you know, so what? Again, hypothetically, this information, just as the disclaimer,
Sure.
this information does not exist.
Yes, I know.
Right.
It would be a large study
Mhm.
with a control group of no fluoride, none. And a group whose fluoridated water is at 0.7 parts per million. It would be done over time, at least like 7 or 8 years. And it would measure health, growth, bone density, intelligence, however you want to measure that, which is age specific, not just an IQ test you run off online. And it would be, honestly, it would be done in the United States. Because we're talking about here. So no offense to any other country, but I can't remember ever working out evidence from a study done in Iraq, Morocco, Argentina, maybe, doubtfully, anywhere in Central America. I'm sorry, it's not the same austere. It is hard and expensive to do a correct study. And it is no joke. A lot of studies get turned away. In that meta-analysis, there was only about 12 studies that would have cut the mustard in the United States or Canada or Japan or Australia or New Zealand or the EU. That's the fact. I mean, those countries are wealthy and they mean business when it comes down to it. They're serious about their questions. And they found no difference. No difference. In the 12 studies that mattered, there was no IQ thing, there was no nothing. The question is do our kids brush their teeth and go to the dentist twice a year in Binghamton, New York? And the answer is no, because there's not enough dentists and there's not enough. It's expensive. It's just expensive. You're gonna buy toothpaste when you could buy something else. I just don't see it.
It's also not being prioritized. I mean, too many households don't have the means or capacity to prioritize.
Or education.
So, I mean, I've also practiced medicines in resource poor areas like the West Bank and Palestine and like Haiti. These are not places where you go for excellent teeth for multiple reasons. Poverty would be the huge one, but they don't have those things. Dentist is the busiest person in town, pulling teeth and everything is terrible. So we don't need to go there. We don't need to go retrograde. I think we need to be progressive. I think that study would be a very progressive, thing to do. That would be a responsible thing for this administration, like at the NIH to do. Instead of just yank it, because of someone's, last name and their confirmation bias. Sorry. I'm a little bit like this is what I'm supposed to do, right? The medical director. I'm not like supposed
No apology needed.
No, we love it.
I mean, I think we have to be able to have honest conversations both about existing practice and expectations.
Mhm.
So some of the talking points again, just I watched some, YouTube videos to
Sure.
try and understand the frustrations that people would have and try and represent them. So one of them related to like infants and kind of concerned particularly infants that are on formula where fluoride's already added. And so I guess like, do you see concerns there? If not,
No,
give it to us why we shouldn't be concerned.
yeah, well, first of all, infants do get water. It's not like they don't, breastfed infants don't really, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think in the population we're talking about, we're definitely not at La Leche League levels of breastfeeding, which would be another way to fix the issue, but that's complicated and that's for another day. The amount of fluoride in baby formulas is made in for fluoridated water. So it's not like it's an add-on or different. It's like has all that has been thought of, before. A lot of these things, they use the scary science speak. Like they'll say, be careful, it's got like dihydrogen monooxygenate in it, which is just like H2O water, right? And people are like, oh my God, how could that be? So I think those are. Honestly, it's just hard to get information from YouTube. It's a little bit.
No, I know, I just,
Yeah, no, I know.
I just want to make sure when we're having this conversation that those,
That might be the understatement of the century.
that
Uh,
that the
Hard to get.
concerns were brought up, and so that you could respond to them. No, not trying to.
No, not so. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So I mean, another case in point. So in the country of Israel, the whole country is a socialized country. They remove fluoride from the water and it returns. One, because they're nutty about their health. I practiced my first practice. I was educated there. I went to medical school. Like there's even doctors like cleaning the streets there. There's too much medicine in there. And they're very study heavy, and they're definitely an up and coming country. All things aside, in the last year and a half and all of the situation, but medically, they're a sharp, organized, small country that wouldn't do anything that would hurt their children, guaranteed. I mean, that is a huge priority for the Israelis. And so, although we wouldn't look at Israel necessarily as like the shining star of how to run a country all the time, but when it comes to medicine, they are organized and sharp. They did a ton of our COVID studies. The whole country did them for the world's sake. And so they're like a real trustworthy group of skeptics who care about their kids with desperation. So, and most of them don't breastfeed all the way either.
Hmm.
And they use the same formula that we do. So,
There's one organization that I looked up that I had, I guess, previously thought of as highly reputable. And I'm gonna try and pull up the information, but it's the Environmental Working Group.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they had some statements on fluoride that I was surprised about.
You said, what's the name of it?
Environmental Working Group. I don't know if you have general feelings about them, but they were a group that I had always thought of as reputable. Which is why I went to their.
Right. I can't say anything about their reputability. I would say that they're not one of the places that we would look for something medical.
Okay.
I mean, after doing this for 25 years, it wouldn't cross my mind.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't, they might mean they're good, but, and they might say good things. There's a lot of good things to be said about a healthy environment.
Mhm.
There's a lot of good things about good food and all that other stuff too.
Oh, I guess the other kind of thing that people talk about a lot is, which when I think I talked to my dentist about it, didn't sound super boogeyman-y, like it sounds when people talk about it, but dental fluorosis, like, isn't it just like staining of the teeth?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so these kind of. First of all-
Similar to your chemical discussion, that would be another one where it sounds
Right.
like, oh, a serious medical condition.
Right, it would be like, okay, first of all, now you can have your teeth unstained, I suppose, if you like. Second, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that actually stains your teeth, coffee, tobacco. And then there's really poor dentition. So this is one of those things that it's. We had this warning with the antibiotic that many of us have taken, doxycycline, you'd never give it to kids. Why? It stains your teeth. Well, they have Lyme disease. So it's better to treat that than to stain teeth. Almost like that gets raised to the level of something that's hyper important. So I just like, I think that's a little bit of nuance that's maybe gone astray.
But yeah, I know, I certainly, when I was reading this stuff and they kept talking about,
But that wouldn't be at
Like fluoro-
0.7
right.
parts per million, wouldn't do that, so it's not, you know, high levels of fluoride does stuff to people, we just don't have it in Binghamton.
so yeah, so the environmental working group. Mentioned that, and again, I don't know this organization, but the National Toxicology Program. Says that they're investigating low doses of fluoride to alter thyroid function.
Yeah,
There's
just
that.
there's no compelling data as of last week. I mean, those are the kind of things we
Yeah.
follow, so it's not like that's some hidden secret.
Making sure I get through all the
Yeah.
scary online stuff.
No, I mean, there's also osteosarcoma, which is even terrible, more terrible, that's again, never been seen and But that's what we keep doing, like, we keep the trolling nets out for all sorts of things.
Mhm.
That's how we get better. I mean, that's progress, so.
Anyone else? Sorry, it's just like, I want to make sure that we get through all the list of the scary
Yeah,
stuff
no,
and make sure.
It's good.
Yeah, see if check in with Julian here,
Yeah.
because Julian sat through the
Yeah, he contacted
The-
us, he's the one who said,
previous.
do you know anything about this?
I think he probably has to unmute on his end.
Yeah, I've asked to unmute. I believe you have to accept that if you would like to ask any questions. If not, I think we can assume you have no questions.
There's somebody else.
So, okay, so you mentioned the dental association
Yeah, the ADA,
and the pediatric.
AA.
Is there, do you have contacts for local chapters or local?
They're online.
Yeah, and he gave some names too, I think
Yeah.
it was Dr. Bruns, I have it on
Dr.
there.
Bruns would be the one, I mean,
Yeah,
he's the
yep.
actual, like,
Write
super
that down.
Bowl
Yep,
beats down.
yep, definitely,
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna,
Is there anyone else that you would suggest we reach out to?
Well, I think Dinosaur Dental sees a lot of kids, but that's an Endicott, so
Mhm.
that's not, they have
Yeah.
fluoride in the water,
yeah,
but
there's, yeah,
it's different, like Dr. Bruns would be like. Sort of your classic dentist.
Okay.
Everything about his approach is pretty classic style.
Hmm.
And his staff, so his staff sees kids without him sometimes too.
no.
They're very well trained with, dental hygiene.
And where's this at? You said
Right
right by
next to
the health department?
Yeah, we're like next to each other. I never would have ever seen them in my life if I didn't walk over there. It's not like the building is on the inside connected.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like Professor Shepherd took himself off mute. No.
Yes, may I just say that I'm very grateful that the city council is taking this quite seriously. And thanks to Dr. Gehring for a very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Amazing,
Thanks, Julian. Thank you.
Yep.
really amazing, thank you. Very, very informative.
So I'm here, and I care. So if there's if stuff comes up,
Please, yeah.
yeah, don't
Do you have
hesitate.
your card?
I have nothing. I came with my keys and a wallet and a
That's
cell
okay, we'll
phone.
reach out, we'll just reach out to the health department, okay, yeah, we'll just. reach
Yeah,
out to you.
but Sam and Sarah are all.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to meet with us.
Yeah, thank you.
They're forever gracious.
I know, I thought possibly Colleen or Jason would be on because they were also concerned about it, but. He's already heard the spiel.
And they trust you, they know that you'll get the job done.
Yeah, I guess they do. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
do you wanna give me a motion?
I'll make a
Thank
motion to
Thank
adjourn.
you.
I'll second.
Great.
All in favor?